Well, at least it didn't come out as late as the last one. Hello and welcome to my mostly yearly Soyjack Consumer Hype List. For the many of you who are new and might watch this, the Soyjack Consumer Hype List is a list where I talk endlessly about stuff that hasn't come out yet, that I want to watch, read, play, listen to, or whatever. Not that I'm actually going to, of course. Please God, let time stop slipping through my fingers as my life flashes before my eyes, making me realize I did nothing I ever wanted to. But we're too early in the video for mental breakdowns, because today we're taking a look at all the media I'm excited for in 2025. I'd also like to note that, because of the length of this video, I'm sure some of this stuff has already come out by the time this goes up. In order to ensure my biases haven't been influenced, I have not engaged with anything on this list during the editing process. For you, a good 3 or 4 of these might be things you've already experienced, but because this is a hype list, and these are things I just so happen to be really hyped for, they make it on the list regardless. I had this happen in the previous list because it came out months later than intended, something that, thankfully, didn't happen this time around. I feel like having seen things ahead of time kind of negates the purpose of a hype list. Not super proud of that video aside from the intro.
He is back, like a pedo on parole.
So join me as we travel through the biggest Soyjack Consumer Hype List I've ever made, because there are 29, yes, 29 pieces of upcoming media on my list that I'm excited for. But, just like my previous videos, I won't be talking about stuff from my lists of years past that have since been delayed to this year or beyond. So even though I'm excited for Crimson Desert and Ananta, for example, I already talked about them in my previous videos, so they're not going to be part of my list this time around. With this always too long intro out of the way, it's time to start talking about all the stuff I'm excited for that's coming out in 2025. And what would be the most fitting for the 29th spot than a movie with a number in the title that's close, but not quite. I am a huge fan of the 28 Days Later duology. I watched the first one right around the time I started The Walking Dead, and saw 28 Weeks Later not long after. For those unaware, I'm a very big fan of horror, and even though the zombie boom has died down over the last decade or so, they're still up there as some of my favorite monsters. These hollowed out husks of what were once people, shambling through the world, stealing the humanity of others in vicious ways. It's pretty fucked up, and I think the 28 Days Later movies have done a good job at showing how terrifying a scenario like that can be. I also appreciate the realism of the films, since the rage virus doesn't really turn people into zombies. Sure, they can eat human flesh or infect people by biting them, but technically speaking, they aren't zombies. They're faster, have enhanced strength, want to kill, but can also die of starvation in around the same time frame as a normal person, which is why I'm so interested in what 28 years later is going to bring to the table. I have to admit, I don't know much about this thing outside the first trailer, but what I saw engaged me, and has clearly revamped my love for zombie horror in the process. Or apocalyptic horror, since I know people are wishy-washy about whether they're really zombies or not. I'm more cautiously optimistic about this one though, since the end of 28 Weeks Later gave me the impression the virus was either going to die off or fuck humanity, whichever came first. I'm not too sure how they're going to handle it, but the atmosphere of the trailer got me more than I thought it would. I guess my only gripe is that this is part 1 of a confirmed trilogy, and I'm not so sure what it's going to do to justify such a long story with the same characters. I enjoyed the previous 2 because it only provided a snapshot from one perspective about what was going on. Maybe as a swan song, a trilogy works, but I'm still a little trepidatious. Even so, the blood-fueled fuck nightmare of the trailer has me hooked, so I'm definitely going to check this out when it arrives in theaters on June 20th. Now, on the complete opposite end of the zombie apocalypse, we have a different nightmare: being a chef. The Bear is a series I have a lot of respect for, but also a contentious opinion about. The premise is simple. A promising young chef working at a world-class restaurant moves back home to run his brother's roast beef sandwich shop after he tragically kills himself. Seasons 1 and 2 are some of my favorite television to come out in the last few years, with multiple episodes making me cry. And not because I'm a bitch either, even if that's true. I'd be surprised if anyone didn't at least tear up during the many emotionally cathartic scenes throughout the series. The writing is consistently incredible, making me care about characters I never thought I would by the end of Season 2. Season 3, however, was a mixed bag. Well, there was one episode in particular that got me really choked up, like, holy shit, that hit hard. The season wasn't really standout in most areas. That's because The Bear formats itself with every season being about a different theme. Each batch of episodes is like a different dish, and the one Season 3 served up was being stuck. Well, that and possible impacts from the Hollywood strikes in 2023, but I'm not here to make excuses. Season 3 wasn't amazing, but I did understand what the point of it was. Artistically, it made sense, even if the entertainment value was lacking. However, Season 4 is promising to be a different beast entirely, especially with the strikes over and the premise already confirmed to be about getting unstuck. The only reason it's so low is because I'm afraid of a repeat of Season 3, something that could very well happen if they rush production. Despite being one of the few shows who actually drops episodes in June every year, it's one of the few I think should take more time to serve up a better dish. Fuck you, the pun was funny. I hope they take that time, because I think Season 4 could be a stellar continuation if they too can unstick themselves from what made Season 3 so underwhelming. Now look, this next one is honestly unnecessary. Truth be told, I'm even less optimistic about this one being very good, but I'm still holding out hope for The Accountant 2. The Accountant is an underrated, at least back in my day, crime thriller about Christian Wolf, an autistic accountant who secretly works for a variety of criminal organizations. He, per Wikipedia, uncooks their books, making their fraudulent criminal activities look legitimate. And that's really all I can say, because the film is fantastic, and spoiling it would be tantamount to blasphemy. Aside from the relatable protagonist, the movie is a really fun time, even if you have to occasionally suspend your disbelief at certain points. It also feels like something that could kind of spin out into a franchise despite having a definitive ending. Yeah, okay, so I am partially worried a sequel is going to ruin the magic of the first one. But with director Gavin O'Connor, writer Bill Dubuque, and Ben Affleck returning, I am hopeful that it won't be complete shit. Because if last year taught me anything, it's that sometimes unnecessary sequels are complete shit. Sometimes. So even though there's a strong chance the new installment comes off as an attempt to capitalize off the original's popularity over the last few years, I'm still hopeful. The Accountant 2 seems like it could be interesting, and I'm praying to God with my fingers crossed and several religious texts around me in a circle that it actually ends up being okay-ish at worst. And before I forget, it comes out in theaters on April 25th. But this list isn't going to be populated by only sequels or new installments of TV shows. There's also stuff that hasn't come out yet, including things with zero promotional material whatsoever as of writing, like Happy Face. Now, when you think of Robert and Michelle King, you probably have no idea who I'm talking about. Okay, let's back it up. The husband and wife pair are responsible for various popular TV shows, mostly under Paramount's umbrella. They served as executive producers on the Showtime drama Your Honor, where Walter White becomes a judge, and a legal drama called The Good Wife, which, by the way, is technically an ongoing franchise, with its third series, Elsbeth, in the middle of its second season. But what they've become best known for in recent years is Evil, a show about a forensic psychologist who gets a job at the Catholic Church, working with a priest in training and a Muslim-turned-atheist to investigate alleged demonic possessions. Now, despite some, as you'd say, woke elements, like one episode where a ghost caught on camera was actually racism, no, I'm not making that up, and it was just as dogshit as it sounds, the show is quite good. Well, okay, everything after Season 1 is good. See, Season 1 was on CBS and had to restrict itself to a TV-14 format, but Season 2 onward were moved to Paramount+, the rating was bumped up to TVMA, and it started taking on this dark, oppressive atmosphere while pushing most of the political brain rot to the background. And, somehow, also being a fun show to watch despite the tonal shift, because they crafted a dark, enticing story that was off the walls yet took itself seriously. I trust the Kings to do well with Happy Face, because this Paramount Plus drama is about the real-life Happy Face serial killer, Keith Hunter Jesperson, a man who murdered 8 women in the 90s and drew smiley faces on his letters to police and the press. It's based on a true crime podcast by his daughter, Melissa Moore. Given the King's talent at crafting engaging fictitious horror, I'm really interested to see them take a crack at something realistic. I do believe their talent means they'll be respectful of the real-world events that transpired and offer a compelling TV show in the process. Filming is also complete, so even though there's no release date as of writing, there's probably going to be one soon. Looking forward to seeing what they do, and really hopeful that it's true to life while pulling lessons they learned from their prior shows, like Evil, to make it stand out. And of course, this list wouldn't be complete without something I know for a fact has already come out by the time this video is ready. Now, as a horror aficionado, I am quite partial to the old Universal monster movies. Big fan of Dracula, big fan of Frankenstein, Creature from the Black Lagoon might be one of my favorites. And of course, The Wolfman. Now, unfortunately, my boy here hasn't had a good movie since his first one. Sure, there have been good werewolf movies since then, but Universal hasn't been able to capture the terror and tragedy of the original in quite the same way. But I have high hopes for Wolfman 2025. The story follows a family who, while on a cross-country road trip moving to a new home, are attacked by a werewolf. The father, Blake, gets scratched, resulting in his slow transformation into the titular monster. Director Leigh Whannell was also responsible for the semi-recent Invisible Man remake, which I haven't seen but heard good things about. But what really convinced me to put it on the list is the fact he's taking inspiration from The Fly when it comes to Blake's transformations, which to me says he'll be slowly changing over the course of the movie, while the story itself preys upon the tragic circumstances, while also making them horrifying to watch. Plus, it has Julia Garner in it, and she deserves some career redemption after the terrible ending of Ozark. While January has typically been where shit movies go to die, since most people either aren't going to the theaters or are too busy watching Sonic 3, there you go, Sonic mention, are you happy? I still have faith it'll deliver some dark, tense moments laced with genuine horror. Looking forward to seeing it when it comes out on January 17th. Or has come out on January 17th, most probably. Actually, yeah, I'm recording this on January 17th, so yeah, it's out. Go watch it, I guess, if the reviews were good. I have no idea. But enough about watching a bunch of bullshit on a screen. Instead, let's talk about playing a bunch of bullshit on a screen. I am sort of interested in Fantasy Life 1? Fantasy Life, the girl who steals time. Now look, I haven't played Fantasy Life before, so I don't really know what to expect. And before you say, it's kind of like Animal Crossing, well, joke's on you, I haven't played that either. But I find myself drawn, captivated by the idea of life sims, of living in a world that this sordid reality cannot offer me, one where I am a cute chibi and can collect berries and fish to pay off my debts. The scariest thing about being alive is that it's real. So to stave off the inevitable, I wish to inundate myself with worlds I can get lost in, and this new Fantasy Life game feels like the kind of thing that can do just that. I have to save a ruined island and can only do it through menial tasks that actually feel like a grand adventure. Exploration and town building and dragons and being the hero of my own story. Interacting with the various characters who get me to do different things to uphold this digital landscape. This is the life I want to have. Plug me the fuck in because I don't want to get out of the computer. Okay, so barring the existential crisis, the game looks like a fun, relaxing way to immerse myself in a completely different reality for a bit, hoping to God I can do so at my leisure years after the game comes out in April. Because God knows I'm not getting to it by then. Ha 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 ha. Please help me. But there's nothing leisurely about this next one, which is probably my most soy on the entire list. Actually, it's not. That's later. Mostly because it's clearly an attempt at continuing a franchise that, honestly, is probably better off not going after the previous installment. But I can't help but remain curious about where they're going to take Ballerina. An in-betweenquel in the John Wick universe, Ballerina follows Eve, an assassin in training at the Ruska Roma who sets off to avenge her father's death. The trailer promises plenty of action alongside familiar faces from the franchise, including Keanu Reeves himself. Now, this is one I'm more hyped for simply because of the action sequences. I've heard Chad Stahelski, the guy who's directed all the John Wick movies, was brought in to redo some scenes, meaning I can have faith that they'll feel typical of the franchise. Yet, at the same time, he had to be brought in to redo scenes. What does that really mean for the rest of the movie? And given how well Peacock's Continental prequel put me to sleep, I'm really up in the air about how well this one is going to do. But I'm still going to see it when it comes out on June 6th to see if it's really worth investing my time in the world of assassins after its main character is bowed out. Well, okay, I am going to see Donnie Yen's Kane movie, but after that I'll stop. Haha, I can quit whenever I want. Speaking of quitting, holy shit, they should probably stop making Saw movies. But they aren't going to, just like I'm not going to stop watching them. This gore porn franchise is an endless clusterfuck with only 4 real good movies out of the 10. And yet, somehow, I can't stop watching them. Not for the traps. No, fuck the traps. The lore of these movies is unbeatable. I don't know how they do it. How they manage to bullshit their way into bringing more crazed backstory to Jigsaw and make it all fit. How they keep getting Tobin Bell to reprise the role despite having only appeared alive in 4 of them. It's a special kind of pure insanity that I cannot get enough of. Seriously, if you don't know anything about Saw lore and don't mind copious amounts of blood and guts, here's what you do. Watch the movies, preferably unrated for those with the option, week to week like a TV show. You will be floored by the level of sheer insanity that happens in every single one. And to top it off, Saw 10 was good. Probably the closest thing to a legitimate movie the franchise has ever had. But that's not why I'm excited for Saw 11. No, I know it's going to be awful. They tried rushing it out last year only to push it back when they realized just how fucking insane that would have been. I have no faith this thing is going to be good because it's clearly just Twisted Pictures trying to redo 10's success. And from what I understand, without the writers from 10 for some reason. It's going to be bad, but that's part of the joy when it comes to the Saw franchise. Seeing how the next pile of manure is going to build atop the rest of the shit. I love this franchise so much, you have no idea, and I don't care if it's the most gratuitous crap on this list. I cannot wait for Saw 11 on September 26th, and if it surprises by actually being good like the last one, all the more reason to be happy about it. You know what I'm not happy with though? Gacha games. Specifically, the fact I can never find the time to play any of them. I would love to spend the rest of my life surrounded by 2D girls who love me and 2D bros I can go on adventures with. But, as a 3D flesh bag, the only place I'll be spending my life is in the psych ward. I have wrestled between two gacha games I wanted to put on this list. One of them was Dungeon & Fighter Arad, which I briefly discussed in my Game Awards video as something I thought looked pretty good. But I decided not to, since it's probably not going to come out this year as it doesn't even have a website yet as of writing. But there's something else that does have a website, indicating to me it will, in fact, arrive in 2025. Azure Premilia is an upcoming open-world fantasy game created by the same studio that brought you Azure Lane. You know, the gacha where you can marry boats, big and small. I don't know much about the game, outside the clear inspiration it'll be pulling from Genshin, which, like it or not, popularized the trend of 3D models and open worlds in gacha games. I do not know much about this game, truth be told. And given Azure Lane's recent fall at the hands of the Google Play Store, I'm unsure what it means for Premilia. However, upon opening the website, I was greeted by Terrara, alongside Procreational Instincts. The same thing happened when I saw the Elf Girl, and don't worry, I've loved them since Goblin Slayer, before Freerun made it cool. Losing hours grinding for premium currency through a potentially mediocre story just to get these two is enough of an excuse. I can't wait to download Azure Premilia, roll my newest imaginary harem members, and then hit uninstall, so I can focus on all the other ones I still have in progress. Please end my suffering. Speaking of suffering, some of you will be surprised to see this next one as low as it is on my list. Much like the now famous VTuber Pipkin Pippa, I am a big fan of dinosaurs, which also means I really like the Jurassic Park and subsequent Jurassic World movies. Yes, I am one of the few people on this godforsaken planet who believe Jurassic World Dominion was really good. In fact, I thought it was a solid way to cap off the trilogy while leaving the door open for potential future installments, which seemed inevitable given its $1 billion box office. But here's the thing, I'm not too sure about Jurassic World Rebirth. Sure, it's directed by Gareth Edwards, whose movies have all been fantastic. It's written by David Cope, the writer of the first two Jurassic Park movies. But the behind the scenes of the whole movie make me unsure about the whole thing. For one, the film was announced with a release date before it even had a director. For another, the plot is going to semi-retcon dinosaurs living among humanity in favor of killing them all off, except the ones near the equator. Sorry, Blue, at least you're alive in the fanfics. It's going to follow a group of people hunting down 3 big dinosaurs so they can take their DNA for an unknown client. Yet trouble strikes when the Delgado family's boat gets attacked by aquatic animals, resulting in them getting wrapped up in the mission too. It gives me a very corporate vibe, especially when this is, allegedly, the beginning of a new trilogy. While I'm excited to see dinosaurs on the big screen in all their Jurassic Park-style glory, the story sounds iffier than the last two, which already made some admittedly weird decisions to begin with. I'm not sure if the whole thing is going to come together that well, but I am optimistic about the dinosaur action. Because if there's one thing they can't get wrong, it's that. Right? I'll be seeing it when it comes out on July 2nd, but the quality is something we'll have to see about. In case you couldn't tell, we're still in the hyped but not totally sure portion of the video. But don't worry, this is the last entry in that list. Because I love you. You as in the show, not you, the viewer. Well, okay, I do love you, like that you're here, but it's not like I love you, you know? Not like that. You is a Netflix show about a stalker named Joe who falls in love with a new girl every season, ruins her life, and gets away with it. Seriously, the power level of this motherfucker is insane, with him continually getting into wilder situations and, somehow, finding a way to turn the tide in his favor. Every season is a new misadventure and a new trail of broken lives as he finds ways of getting away with it and moving on to his next victim. This show is based, okay? Because even though you're supposed to think Joe is a monster, the series focuses on making him sympathetic all the time, sometimes even showing other characters are their own brand of horrible just to make him look more like the good guy. I can't really remember if there's anyone whose life he ruined I sympathized with. Okay, maybe one character, but that's about it. Most of his monstrous moments just come across as rooting for the crazed sociopathic stalker, and I love it. Which is why You Season 5, the final season, sounds like it'll be a great time. Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure the series is going to go in the direction of every anti-hero story nowadays and end with him getting punished. My greatest fear is that they pussy out on making him become president of the United States or something, a very realistic possibility right now, and no, that's not a joke. I want this show to end with a massive win for him simply because it's been too much of a goofy pro-Joe monkey fest at this point for it to turn tail and run from itself now. So that's why, even though I'm excited about Season 5, I'm a little cautious about what's going to happen. I want him to win, and I really hope the story doesn't have the typical, predictable outcome shows like these nowadays always do. Give me Joe's Felina, dammit. I want the show's last moments to be his smile. Hi, Zed from the future, recording this after it was announced that You Season 5 will be premiering on Netflix April 24th. Very, very excited to see what happens. It's another 10-episode season, so I'm sure it'll be full of great hijinks and hopefully a fitting ending, or at least the ending I want. Okay, now we've made it to the part of the list where I'm confident everything will be of reasonable quality, with said quality expectations increasing with every new installment. So look, I haven't been keeping up with much new anime in a few years, okay? Part of it is because I do, in fact, have an anime video I've been making off and on the last few years that's about anime that are older, and life stuff, but that's boring. As for said video, I'm finally starting to make some real progress with it, so please be patient, it'll all make sense when this behemoth is finally out, which is actually going to be my second overall anime video, but look, just give me some time, I'm really hopeful about some big stuff coming this year. But I still want to highlight anime that caught my eye this year, in case I actually do end up watching them, or if it looks good to any of you watching this video. The first of these, and lowest on the list, is Kakushite Makina-san. At least I hope the pronunciation was correct. I'm going to mispronounce so many Japanese words in this video, it's not even funny. Animated by Blooms, known for all of this middle-of-the-road stuff I've never heard of, Kakushite follows Makina Agutsama, a school idol who ends up living with introverted otaka Eita Akutsu. Through reasonable means, I imagine. But uh-oh, she's not just a school idol, but also, secretly, a horny sex bot. And so Eita must do his best to preserve his virginity from the steel succubus while maintaining her secret for unclear reasons. Look, you and I both know it's ecchi trash, but I don't care because I find it hilarious. Sure, the poster may have downgraded the risque factor compared to the manga's cover, but on premise alone, this sounds so stupid and lighthearted that I kind of want to see what happens here. Plus, Makina has a flesh fang and cute purple eyes, so how could she not make the list? On the opposite side of the pervert otaku spectrum, we have another anime that's also a rom-com. However, this one leans less into the light sci-fi and more into the fantasy realm. Witch Watch follows the story of Niku Wakatsuki, a witch who, after finishing magic school, moves in with her childhood crush, Morihito Otogi. Because of the family history in their world, Morihito is tasked as Niko's familiar, needing to protect her from any magical dangers. And he can do this because, despite his outward human appearances, he's actually an orc. The series then, apparently, because I haven't read the manga, follows the pair as they engage with supernatural mysteries and threats as they meet new cast members embodying different fantasy ideas. The anime comes from Bibiri Animation Studios, best known for their adaptation of Harem Bait the Quintessential Quintuplets, an actual harem story, The 100 Girlfriends Who Really, 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 Really Love You. While I haven't done much research into the anime, it sounds like a fun time, especially if the rom-com aspects result in some fun hijinks throughout. Definitely something I'm going to keep my eye on, since it also sounds like it could be comfy and action-packed, depending on the story arc. Also because it just sounds like fun. So here's hoping it delivers on its promising premise in April, something I'm sure any readers will already be able to tell me. But now we're going to jump back into the world of Western Goy Slop with another sequel, because what else is America even making anymore? But this one is almost 10 years in the waiting, and also has to do with my proclivities for the anthropomorphic. Okay, sure, I'll admit it. I feel a deep longing to kiss Blaze the Cat and several other Sonic characters, but I am not a furry. Shut the fuck up! Zootopia 2 is the long-awaited sequel to the last good movie Walt Disney Animation Studios ever made. Okay, you could argue Moana was good, I guess, if you liked it, but everything else has been west of dog shit if you ask me. Now, the reason I'm hyped for the sequel, despite how easily they could fuck it up, is because of these two. I just like them, okay? Nick Wilde and Judy Hopps are the last great characters Disney's ever made in their original animated movies. Their dynamic is amazing, their stories were potent and real in the first one, which is why the amount of time between movies is so astounding to me. This company has strip-mined beloved IPs from Star Wars to Marvel to all their 2D animated movies for every penny they're worth and more. So to see Zootopia not get a sequel for so long makes me wonder if they know they have to get this one right, especially after Inside Out 2 revealed that, yes, focusing on a good story and good characters with actual passion behind what's being made will still net you over $1 billion. At least I hope that's the lesson they learn, and not that any familiar-looking sequel can get tons of money. Like Moana 2, which I'm told by people I trust was a cinematic disaster. Regardless, I have high hopes for Zootopia 2. Me putting it on the list is kind of an attempt at psychically ensuring it doesn't turn out to be shit, so all I can do is cross my fingers and pray to God. Please let these two have a good follow-up story that doesn't ruin what made the original so special. Speaking of special, you're gonna think I fucking am after this one. So look, I know it's not the best show out there, okay? Season 1 was really, really good, and Season 2 was also good, but didn't meet the same high expectations set for it by its predecessor. But I think Invincible Season 3 is going to be a return to form for the show. The superhero series has been adapting Robert Kirkman's comic in a generally faithful way, for better or worse. Season 2 was definitely a transitional season that suffered a bit from many stories that took place around the same time in the comic, having been moved to Season 1. Way too much focus on romantic subplots and family drama, and a bunch of similar stories that just overstayed their welcome. But Season 3 is promising a lot more than that, with Mark poised to get his new suit in the process. I haven't actually seen the trailer yet, because I do fear spoilers, and we're also coming up to the part of the comic where I stopped reading, so I don't know everything outside a certain issue that... well, no spoilers, right? The show comes back on February 6th, and because of my odd decisions to always follow Western shows instead of the anime I should probably be watching, I will be watching and waiting to see if I'm right in my assessment that it'll be much more like Season 1. But we're still not out of the animation woods just yet, because this next one is something very different from everything we've talked about so far. Hell, it's the most different from pretty much everything on the list. So, look, I have some complicated opinions about AI art. But the gist of it is this. I think AI art can be good if it's helping and complementing an artist's work, rather than using it to wholesale copy something someone else made. If AI is used creatively, or for highly creative, highly transformative purposes, I don't have a problem with it. And this next entry was made with the heavy use of AI programs. It's also the funniest fucking thing I've seen on YouTube in years. Let me introduce you to the Monoverse. The Monoverse is a collection of comedic, in-universe TV episodes focusing on a race of blob people who worship a giant tower called the Monolith, who, as expected, entered the human world after a gumball company attempted to make the perfect gumball. I won't go into spoilers, because if you haven't seen Viz Media's masterpiece of a series, you really should. The writing is all done by a human, while the visuals are made using like a dozen or so different AI programs throughout, making for an incredible combination of creative world building and hilarious stories, and even emotional ones at times too. Really looking forward to seeing more of these in 2025, especially since it sounds like more long-form episodes are on the way. It should make for an entertaining, wild ride, as even more is revealed about the monolith and the secrets it holds. Hail Zorgoth. But we aren't done with the animation yet. Even though the company who made this next one has dabbled in AI before, this series doesn't use it. Or they've simply tricked us into thinking that's the case. It's also a show I'm still not caught up on, having only seen half of Season 1 and read the subsequent manga chapters of. Haha, isn't life great? Spy X Family Season 3 deserves to be on my hype list, simply because I know it's going to be good. I have no idea about the story and where it goes, aside from Becky's attempt to seduce Lloyd, or any of the new characters who show up, outside of Bond the dog. All I know for certain is that I enjoyed the initial premise, it's still getting a ton of praise, and this is penance for not playing Anya's silly puzzle dress-up game like I said I would last year. I know that's not much to go off, especially when there's over 30 episodes of the show I haven't even seen yet, but I also know, in the depths of my decrepit heart, it's still something I would enjoy. Plus, the comedy and family values of Spy X Family are great, and given my bias toward Wit Studio in general, I think it's safe to say the show will be good. Plus, it gives me time to catch up by October 2025, which is definitely going to happen. Ha 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 ha! Look, there's a reason I haven't caught up on many anime, and part of it has to do with the video I've been cooking for years. I'm hoping and praying we'll see the light of day sometime soon, but that also means I've neglected something I've always wanted to be into. But the issue is the fact I'm even able to make videos with the time I have is a miracle, and I have to stop sleeping. It's time to make more green tea. Okay, so this next one is more speculative, because not only is there no guarantee this comes out in 2025, but this might not even be real at all. Is this an excuse to put Sonic the Hedgehog front and center in the thumbnail? Absolutely. But it's also something that, if true, I am excited for. My first ever video game was Sonic Heroes. It was my introduction not only to the franchise as a whole, but also to video games in general. It's a formative game, whose domino effect likely led me to where I am today, writing about my excitement for its potential remake. Now look, I'm usually not one for video game remakes, okay? Most of them are just watered down versions of the original sold with a larger price tag. The only examples I can think of that aren't this are Resident Evil 2 and Nier Replicant. And that's about it. Even Sonic fucking Shadow Generations neutered Amy's personality in some smaller scenes. So there's no guarantee this thing is going to be a completely faithful retread of the original. But that's also kind of what makes it so exciting. See, the original plan for Sonic Heroes involved different playable characters in more than just 4 teams. This included bringing Chaos and Gamma back, alongside Fang, Bean, and Bark's Team Hooligan. I don't think the remake would go that far, considering one of the teams also involves Metal Sonic, and, well, that wouldn't really make sense given the final product. But even taking advantage of newer characters like the Babylonians or something could make the game stand out from its predecessor. I don't know. If they're going to re-release Heroes, I'd rather them just port it to PC, but if they're going to remake it, then adding some new teams to the mix would be kind of cool. Maybe even have them as a post-story unlock to keep the story from changing. But I've gone on for long enough about this, because if it's really coming in the fall like people are saying, maybe there really won't be anything new added to it. I'm just hoping it maintains the spirit of the original, or is just, the original with updated graphics. That works too, even if it means I won't be paying for it. But something I will be paying for is your scrutiny, because this next one is the only time I've decided to break my rule about putting things on previous lists on this one. I really enjoy Sleeping at Last. While it started as the name of a band, it's since become the moniker of musician Ryan O'Neal, who releases beautifully sung masterpieces uplifted by an orchestra of vibrant music throughout. Basically, he's really good, and his best project, in my opinion, is Atlas. Atlas is a 3-part musical exploration of life, with every part consisting of 20 to 30 songs examining different facets of life. Part 1 was about light and dark, the universe, basically the concepts that make up reality. Part 2 was about humanity and what makes us who we are, songs about family, senses, the enneagram, and Part 3, which is ongoing, about what can be formed from the humanity we have. So far, 6 songs from Part 3 have been released in batches of 3. This includes 2 companion songs about a concept, followed by a song about one of the Greek forms of love. My favorites in Part 3 so far have been Hurt, a song about no longer wanting to feel pain, and Eros, or Bloom, the best love song that's been released in the 2020s. Seriously, it's fucking beautiful. And because I love the Atlas project so much, to the point where I'm listening to the instrumental of Quiet Magic as I write this part of the script, I'm really looking forward to seeing what's next, especially the love songs, with the ones I'm most excited for being Philatia and Pragma.
Methuselah.
So yeah, I know it's cheating to put him on the list again, but seeing as Atlas is an ongoing project and it's been 2 years, I figured, why not? I can't wait to listen and see what's coming next for Atlas 3. And believe it or not, we finally reached the top 10 part of this soy-infused hype list. Yes, there are only 10 more medias that I'm excited for coming later this year. And what better way to start the final stretch than with another show from Prime Video? I do not care what anyone says about the writing, or the story, or whatever people have criticized this show for. I love Reacher, and I can't wait for Season 3. The story of a nomadic army vet built like a brick wall traveling the world, finding trouble from his past everywhere he goes. It's a very man-out-of-time story, I feel, where there's just this guy who lives in a world that isn't molded for him. So instead, he takes matters into his own hands, shaping the world in his image, not the other way around. It's really neat, and honestly, I've been avoiding trailers for this one like the plague, mostly because I've noticed recently Prime Video has a tendency to spoil shit in their trailers, and I'd rather find out what happens in Invincible more than I do Reacher. I do know it's based on the novel Persuader from Lee Child's Jack Reacher series, and that a rug company is involved, somehow. But other than that, I don't know anything. But I'm really excited to see what happens next. The stories in the last 2 seasons have been really engaging, with neat characters in a world that's both anthological and connected at the same time. It's really neat to see, and I want it to continue making me soy face every time a familiar one shows up. Very tempted to stay up late and watch this one the moment it starts on February 20th. But what would the top of this list be without even more anime? So, I'm just going to start with the title of this one. Watashi wo tabetai hitodanashi. This monster wants to eat me. Here's the setup. A schoolgirl named Hanako, who lives by the sea, is approached by a girl named Shiori. But she's not an ordinary girl. She's actually a flesh-devouring mermaid who promises Hanako that she's going to eat her. However, other nearby monsters are also attracted to the girl and want to eat her themselves. So, to protect her prey until she matures to a riper age, Shiori vows to protect Hanako from other monsters too. But as the two grow closer, their feelings start to develop into something more than symbiosis. Yes, this is a Yuri anime, and I am a fan of Yuri. Well, canon Yuri, that is. Dramatic shows about girls falling in love with one another were imprinted upon me with Citrus, one of the first dozen or so anime I ever watched. And since then, I've always enjoyed the concept of overly dramatic stories about cute anime girls falling in love. This concept in particular interests me because it sounds like there's an underlying paranoia to their budding romance. If Shiori does show signs of falling for Hanako, will they be trustworthy actions of love? Or are they simply a creature molding itself to get closer to its prey? It's a really interesting concept that I think could be done well. It's also coming from Studio Lings, a smaller studio that seemingly specializes in making Yuri anime. I'm interested to see how this one shapes up, especially because its premise sounds like it'll make for some really interesting supernatural drama. I am expecting more than one girl to want to eat Hanako like ice cream, which will only make the drama spicier. I'm very excited to see how this one goes, especially if cool monster designs are also in the cards. I don't know for sure because, as usual, I've never read the manga. Okay, I have a confession. Hold on. I have a confession to make. I like musicals.
But Mr. Trump, wouldn't that make you gay? No, this can't be.
There, I said it, okay? I like musicals. Hamilton, Singing in the Rain, White Christmas, La La Land, not you, Love Live, Wonka, Baby Driver. Yes, it counts. I really like musicals. And one of my favorite musicals to come out last year was Wicked. Look, okay? The Wizard of Oz is, inarguably, the best classical musical of them all. Yeah, forget about West Side Story and The Sound of Music, okay? Dorothy and her band of misfits are the best, with tons of memorable, goofy songs that help bolster the film and its story. And Wicked, the film adaptation of the Broadway show, managed to be just as awesome, with plenty of emotional, hard-hitting songs and story arcs that blew me away. I went into this movie not expecting to really like it all that much, but man did it turn out to be one of the best movies I've seen all year. And it makes me really excited to see Wicked for good when it comes out on November 21st next year. Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande are great in their roles as Elphaba and Glinda. The songs were amazing. The final one gave me chills. It was a fantastic movie, and as someone who doesn't know where the musical goes from here, I'm really excited to see what plays out. I know it's probably going to be tragic, since she'll inevitably get melted when Dorothy throws water on her, but to see her transformation into the Wicked Witch feels like it'll be a really strong, captivating tale, especially if they maintain the same level of quality as the first installment. So yeah, probably the most soy normal cattle on the list, but it's also one I'm really looking forward to seeing when it comes out. Oh, but you thought I was done having popular opinions? Ha! Watch this. Sakamoto Days is a name I haven't heard in a long time until I found out it was getting an anime adaptation. One I haven't started watching yet, but will probably try to, I think, in the next few weeks. Or months. Or years. The premise is simple. What if John Wick had a family and got fat? The story follows retired hitman Taro Sakamoto, who marries a convenience store clerk named Aoi, I think, and has a child with her. However, years later, post becoming fat, he's found and targeted by his hitman underworld, forcing him to protect his family at all costs. However, he also needs to follow his wife's no-killing policy, which he vowed not to do after his retirement. Now, fun fact, I've actually read the first 20 chapters of this. It was back when it was first coming out, so I'm a little rusty on the details. However, I remember the art being very good and having a lot of fun with the premise. It's overwhelming to see it's already nearly 200 chapters long, but with a fun story like this, I'm not surprised it's managed to go on for such a long period of time. With a spin-off also out this year called Sakamoto Holidays. Oh, look at that. The larger story honestly sounds like a lot of fun, and the art style from the trailer really drew me in. Since it's already confirmed to be 2 core, with one in January and another in July, it sounds like it'll hold a strong presence over its medium for a good amount of the year. I am genuinely going to start trying this thing later this year, or at least before the second core comes out. I really like the premise and want to be part of the conversation surrounding it, because it's a feeling I've missed for so long. But not a feeling that's been gone forever, because despite all my woes about not being caught up on a bunch of anime, there is one I just had to watch because of a premise that appealed to me. As a schizophrenic conspiracy nut that believes in everything from demons to cryptids, Dan Da Dan was right up my alley. The story follows Momo Ayase and Okarun, 2 high schoolers who get into an argument about their belief systems. Momo believes in the paranormal, but not aliens, while Okarun believes in aliens, but not the paranormal. Determined to prove each other wrong, the pair go to locations each recommend to prove the other is incorrect. But, as it turns out, aliens and the paranormal are both very real. And so begins the endlessly psychotic fun that is Dan Da Dan. I was sold right away from episode 1 on this fucking show. The absolute batshittery that happens at the very beginning was enough to get me hooked, only for me to become infatuated with the characters, their relationships, and the threats they face along the way. It's a wild show about humanity triumphing over perspective, something that really resonated with me as I watched, which is why it would be criminal for me not to put Dan Da Dan Season 2 high on my hype list. Sure, it's a bit of a repeat since Season 1 was on last year's list, but I can't help but enjoy how the show has everything I love about anime. Crazy fight scenes, romantic comedy, okay, so actually that's more inverted for the sake of horror and exploring trauma, so it doesn't really fit the criteria, but still, the action, the characters, the budding romance, the comedy, the crazed supernatural bullshit. I love this show so much, and I can't wait for Season 2 when it comes out in July. Hell, I might actually start reading more than the few chapters of the manga I have under my belt. That's how you know it's getting crazy in here. Speaking of manga, we're now in the top 5, which means it's time to start pulling out the big guns, talking about stuff I am positive will be good, and that I'm more excited for this year than anything else so far. And why not stir the pot with the first of these final entries? Honestly, there's no introduction in the world that can prep you for this one, so we're just gonna jump right in. Drama Queen is a new Shonen Jump Plus manga about an alternate future in Japan where fat aliens with elephant noses live among society. They are hailed for having saved Earth from an apocalyptic comet 9 years earlier and bringing humans new technology. But their presence has also changed life for the worse in some cases, such as the main character, Nomomoto, who works a dead-end job for an alien that can't even speak Japanese and sees their presence as a peaceful invasion of sorts. She also gets paid an incredibly low wage and is hungry all the time. However, she soon befriends Kitami, a young man whose family was killed by an alien drunk driver who got away with the crime. The pair, fed up with being mistreated by an alien-centric society, begin to bond. However, trouble strikes when they both accidentally kill some of the aliens. One thing leads to another, and the pair decide to do what any rational, sane individuals would: begin killing aliens to drive them out of their city and dispose of them by having Nomomoto eat them. Because apparently, they taste like squid. Now, I don't particularly care for the controversy surrounding this manga. Apparently, there's an argument about whether the manga story is supposed to represent anti-imperialism or anti-immigration, depending on which type of political extremist you are. Lots of people are very angry that the aliens infiltrating society are occasionally shown to have qualities of non-Japanese people. Though I do find it funny how nobody seems to point out stuff like Nomomoto getting annoyed at the alien couple calling each other pet names in the park, or how the first big conflict is aliens accidentally elbowing people because they have really big arms. Honestly, they feel like they're being characterized as people the author is annoyed at. However, I will admit that foreigners appear to be a very big influence for the aliens, something that I admire and respect. Why?
Come on, you know why.
Drama Queen only has 6 chapters out so far, and I'll admit, the story feels like it's still in its early stages. Yeah, it's pretty bare bones right now, and the characters still feel like basic archetypes at this point. They both hate aliens, they both want them dead, but Nomomoto also has a big mouth and sometimes gets distracted by food. But I honestly like the story, the art is strong, and I'm looking forward to see how it develops over the coming year. I've read through chapter 6 at the time of writing, so we'll see what happens. But right now, I'm really enjoying this black pill dynamic duo killing and eating aliens, especially now that the actual plot is starting to creep its way in. Looking forward to see where all of this goes. And now we're in the brain drain zone. See, these last entries on my list are, regrettably, sequels and follow-ups to stuff that already exists. We are currently living in an age of recycled consumerism, where the snake will be eating its own tail until, eventually, it blips out of existence. I understand this will make these final entries less engaging than some of the more unique standouts throughout this video. However, it shouldn't be surprising to hear that, sometimes, the familiar is simply more exciting. There's a level of comfort to what we know, which is why it makes it easier to be excited for things we're familiar with. So, without further ado, here are the final entries on my Soyjack Consoomer Hype List. I enjoy killing things in video games. I am an unhinged psychopath and no amount of therapy is ever going to fix my brokenness. But what can alleviate it is murdering bloodthirsty demons as a badass motherfucker with a bunch of different guns. Doom: The Dark Ages seems like it's going to be a really fun game. As a fan of both the 2016 requel and Doom Eternal, I like the idea of bringing the game into a techno-medieval setting. I'm really not too big on the lore, which I find to be a very goofy backdrop excuse for slaughtering the demonic, but I am interested to see what the Doomslayer's arsenal will be this time around, and how much it'll pull from his backstory in the previous 2 games, which probably means I'll have to play the Ancient Gods DLC at some point in the nearish future, God willing. Speaking of, if anyone knows how to access the not-nerfed version of Part 1 after purchase, please let me know. I'd like to experience it in the most hellish nightmare version imaginable. But as for the Dark Ages, I'm really looking forward to seeing the scope of the gameplay widen. From the buzzsaw shield to the glorified mech to the fucking flying missions, holy shit, that looks so cool. I really feel like this game is going to be a huge step up from Eternal and be another memorable entry in the franchise. My only hope is that they don't make it too easy and continue with the development mindset that made Eternal so much fun. But now we're leaving the world of the interactive behind for the big screen. Gee, I wonder if the guy who likes Sonic the Hedgehog and My Little Pony is a fan of Five Nights at Freddy's. Yes, of course. What do you take me for, a loser? Actually, don't answer that. Five Nights at Freddy's was a really great movie that I have a very weird and unique opinion on, which would make this video so long your ass would go numb. But to summarize, the movie was written by someone who has no idea how to make a movie, and it shows. Scott Cawthon's naive approach to the screenplay is prevalent in everything from its structure to its events, making it a very interesting experience overall. Of course, having played the games helps, but the true beauty of the movie lies in a presentation so surreal it borders on the Lynchian at times. You do realize the Golden Freddy twist is only something someone who's played the games would ever be able to understand, right? It's a style that makes the movie incredibly unique and something I hope continues in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Now, what makes this sequel so interesting is that there's no indication as to how it's going to follow the lore. We've seen in the first film that they're okay with remixing ideas, meaning this is likely a direct sequel that features a refurbished Freddy Fazbear's opening up to the public. That way they can bring bring Josh Hutcherson back as Mike, and can tie in the third game with Afton as Springtrap. FNAF is another franchise I'm particularly passionate about, whose games I haven't played in a decade. So maybe I'll revive my accurately predicting series and expand it to this when the first full-length trailer arrives. But for now, I'm just happy this will be the second to last movie I see in theaters this year on December 5th. As for the final one, well, we've still got time, because my second to last most hyped thing is something that is definitely out now because I'm writing this section 2 days before the first episode drops. So, Apple TV Plus shows don't get enough love. Yes, they have their fair share of bad shows that are literally only there so characters can use the latest and greatest Apple products. I swear half this shit is just a fucking advertisement. No wonder they call it programming, but there are some shows that are actually really good. 2 of my favorite series last year, Dark Matter and Bad Monkey, came from Apple TV Plus. But this one might be one of the best TV shows I have ever seen. Right up there with greats like Breaking Bad, Succession, and Mr. Robot, we have Severance. For the uninitiated, Severance tells the story of Mark Scout, a man who works at a company called Lumen Industries. Because of a past tragedy, Mark decides to become part of the company's experimental severance program. The cheekily named program involves inserting a device into one's brain that splits their sense of self in 2. The outie is the half of Mark that is, well, himself. The one who remembers his whole life, but who retains no memory of his time at work. The innie is the half created because of the severance program. He retains no memories of Mark's past, nor his life outside of work. There is a lot more to it than this, with plenty of unique world building, interesting characters, and stellar writing. I mean, every line of dialogue is amazing, coupled with great performances from the actors. If there was any ongoing series I could highly recommend, it would be this one. Seriously, if you haven't seen Severance, go watch it. It's dramatic, it's creepy, it's thrilling, it's funny, it's a workplace drama, a psychological thriller, and a hinted at dystopia all rolled into one unique package. And Season 2, which I know has already started, is shaping up to be even better than the first. Seriously, I was so worried for the follow-up, yet it already has stellar reviews. And after the pulse-pounding cliffhanger that was the Season 1 finale, which really was just 40 minutes of sheer, unfettered stress, I cannot wait to see where the story goes. I have been avoiding trailers like the plague, but what little has seeped through tells me they are not going the predictable route here. Seriously, I was so fucking worried they would, and Season 2 would be dull filler. And, while nothing's for certain, I do know they are not doing the obvious, they are not playing with the audience's time, and everything is actually going to just keep building. I can't wait for Season 2, which came out on January 17th, I can't wait to see what happens, and I strongly urge you to watch this show. Seriously, this blows every show I've talked about in my hype lists. Yes, including From, out of the water. Just completely phenomenal. And now we are here. The final entry in my 2025 Soylent Eater excitement list. An entry that is probably the most obvious thing in the world. Yeah, if you've seen the trends of my other entries before, you're probably not surprised this movie is taking the top spot 3 years after its predecessor already did. I am so excited for Avatar, Fire and Ash that I wrap back around to being tired. Mostly of waiting, but I also can't blame James Cameron for taking his time and getting all his Blue People movies right. As I was writing this script, some concept art images were released of the movie. They highlight not only the previously confirmed Ash clan of Na'vi, but also wind traders, who are using giant Zeppelin-shaped sky jellyfish to move around. God, Pandora is so fucking cool. I'm really excited to see what new, interesting concepts get introduced this time around. After The Way of Water, I'm kinda subscribed to the idea that Pandora is some kind of technologically marvelous living planet, or something along those lines, given some details throughout both movies that indicate something like that is going on. I feel like the crossover between nature and technology is going to be ever stronger in this one, and I'm looking forward to seeing how Jake and his family are thrust into the center of it all. Plus, maybe it'll make me cry at the end again. And yes, it's been confirmed by Cameron that it's about 3 hours long, just like the last one. I'm really excited about returning to the franchise after all this time, and I'm sure what comes next will be just as captivating as everything we've seen so far. Really looking forward to gorging myself on popcorn while watching the pretty colors on December 19th, and ending yet another year with something blue. And that's it for my 2025 Soyjack Consoomer Hype List. Yes, I'm afraid there's no secret number 1 slot this time around. Nah, I'm just fucking with you. There is, in fact, something I'm looking forward to even more than Avatar 3. One movie, yes, another movie, that stands above everything else on this list. You see, I'm a very big fan of action movies with super strong lead characters. Whether it's John Wick or Oldboy, I love seeing a one-man army take down groups of bad guys in creative ways. Which is why the piece of media I am most hyped for in 2025 is Nobody 2. Nobody starred Bob Odenkirk as an unassuming, down-on-his-luck family man with a secret past. After he takes his frustrations out on a group of thugs, he becomes targeted by a criminal organization. And from there, it's just fun kills and crazy violence. Also, the third act is absolutely glorious. If you've ever wanted to see Home Alone but gory, this is the movie for you. And Nobody 2 sounds like it'll be another exciting entry in the Saul Wake universe. It's been described by the director, whose name I can't pronounce, as summery and colorful, contrasted with the gloomier presentation of the first one. I'm all for the change, and I think it'll fit the tone established in the initial entry all the better. Plus, it's still being produced by 87 North Productions, whose action movies have all been fantastic, giving me even more faith in the high bar of quality being set here. And I'm looking forward to some returning characters too, but that's a whole can of spoilers I don't want to open, in case you haven't seen the first one. Nobody 2 is at the top of my list, and I will be seated in theaters on August 15th to see just how bloody and beautiful this thing turns out. And that is my 2025 Soyjack Consoomer Hype List. Hopefully there's something on this list that caught your eye that you too are now excited for. But as usual, I want to know, what are you most excited for in 2025? There's probably plenty of movies, anime, games, music, hell, even books that I missed, which you're really looking forward to. Consider the comment section a hub for you to go off on whatever passionate tangent you want about something that's coming out this year. I think 2025 is going to have some pretty cool media across the board, and it should be fun to see how much of this list turns out to be just as good as I'm hoping for. I wish you all good tidings throughout the rest of this year, because the decade of Z is upon us, my friends. And this video is only the beginning.